Miranda, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself, your family, and how you then decided to do a 12-month no shopping challenge?
Sure. So I am Miranda Anderson. I'm a mom of three. My kids are now almost 13, almost 11, and 8. I have one lovely husband, 2 dogs, 2 cats, 6 chickens. I now live in Richmond, Virginia. But when we did the shopping challenge back in 2017, we were living in Austin, Texas. And I feel like maybe like a lot of your listeners who find their way to this podcast, maybe recognize at some point that they're running on a treadmill that doesn't seem to ever shut off. I was, a young mom. I had a great job. My husband had a good job. We had just gotten out of school and bought a big house with a big yard and felt like we were finally like doing it, checking all those boxes for like adulthood and success. And I got a minivan and I now had like rooms that I didn't have enough furniture for. And I was doing all the things that I was supposed to do in order to feel fulfilled, content, successful, happy, joyful. And while I felt those things sometimes, and a lot of the time, they didn't stem from my circumstances. They didn't stem from my house, from my shoes, from my closet. They stemmed from experiences and from my family and from these small moments. And yet most of my time and energy and money was spent on things meant to make my life better. And I had kind of this aha moment. I've been online for a long time. I was an OG blogger. I started a blog in 2007. It was a hobby for many years. And around a couple years before our no shopping challenge, I had converted my blog into my job and quit my other full-time job. And so I was blogging full-time, and the way that I was making money was through sponsorships. Ironically, one of the third-party sponsors that I had was for an organization store. And my brief was I was going to do a whole blog post about how to organize my kitchen cabinets. And so I had a budget of $500 to go to this store and buy baskets and bins and caddies and everything you can imagine. And now there's this really popular Netflix show, right, where they come out with all the stuff. So that was me 10 years ago, right? Come out with all the stuff. And I got into my kitchen and I started pulling things out of my kitchen cabinets and realized I had just spent all of this money and brought these bags of things into my home in order to organize the stuff that I didn't even remember that I had that was buried in these kitchen cabinets. Just clutter, random junk, mail, stuff that like party supplies that I had bought for a party that I hadn't yet hosted. And so they were yet unused, even though it had been over a year. I had all this stuff, and yet I was just adding to it. And it was like the light switch turned on, and I recognized that the habits were not aligned with my values, and that there wasn't really a purpose to the kind of keeping up with the Joneses, keeping up with the Pinterest board. And so that was kind of my moment of, I don't think that I want to keep doing this. This isn't working. What else could we do? And I had just watched a documentary about minimalism. And one of the things that I found the whole thing highly unrelatable, one of the pieces that I really liked was to use what you had. Just use the things that you already have. And so I discussed with my husband this idea of using the things that we already had and not adding to it for the next year. It was January, so it was convenient timing to think like, oh, New Year's resolution. And he was on board. So we embarked on our challenge.
What an amazing timeline and journey. I mean, first of all, wow to your family rundown. And I love that you specify just one husband.
Yes, that was a very important thing for me to hear.
Yeah, one's enough.
Also, this sobering image that I feel I can relate to of going out and getting all of the things, bringing them back into your home. Like, I feel like I can picture you with the excitement and And I think I hear so many people say, oh, wouldn't it just be so great to have tons of money to just go and get all the pretty containers? And you actually had it. You did it. You had $500 to spend, which would be a lot of people's dream to go do that. And then you come back with bags and bags and bags. Just the image feels seared into my mind right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then that realization, like I'm with you in that aha moment of, I just brought stuff to manage stuff, to keep cleaning my stuff and doing stuff with my stuff. Holy
Right.
smokes.
Yes.
But then what I think is really interesting about your story, Miranda, is how that realization led you to a 12-month no shopping challenge. I feel like some people could realize that and be like, isn't that funny? I bought stuff to manage my stuff. And then they move on. But you didn't even go to a 1-month challenge. You did the whole 12-month thing. So how did that come about? How'd you get like your dog, 6 cats, 1 husband, 4 children on board with this?
Yeah. So at the time it was just 1 dog along with the children, and the husband. So then the chickens are on board for anything, anytime.
They're so chill. They're savages, but they're chill.
So, it's so funny because I don't know that I ever even considered that like doing something shorter than a year. And it was probably the hype of being close to the beginning of the year, if I'm being totally honest. Like I've never really thought like, why didn't we do 1 month or 3 months? Like I think I was kind of looking for, as I always am, I'm always fairly goal oriented and I like the idea of progress, and like, I like a project. I like thinking like, what am I going to be tackling this year? What am I looking forward to? So I think because of timing, that's what lent to this idea of a 1-year challenge, because it just made sense. It was January. Let's do this for a year. I think, the other thing is that that's a model that I've seen in a lot of books, and, like I love The Happiness Project by Gretchen Rubin. That's, this 1-year challenge. I had seen other people do, challenges of different sorts for a year, leaving that, turning off their phones for a year, or not using the internet for a year, or living in an RV for a year, so it just kind of made sense, I guess. I was lucky that my husband was, at the time, he was home a lot less. He was working a ton at his job. And so I did most of the shopping anyway. So he was like, great, you don't want to shop for a year? Sounds good to me. I think to him, it was just like, yeah, like, how could I say no to this? My kids were young enough as well that they didn't have, like, we sat them down and had a family conversation about it. I remember saying, when you like for a while, until next January, until after Christmas next year, we're not going to buy any new toys when we go to the store, and we're just going to use the ones that we already have. So if you want a toy and we aren't going to buy a new one, can you think of anything that you could do? And my, at the time 5-year-old was like, well, we could make a toy. I'm like, yeah, we totally could make a toy. These are my kids that we take them on hikes and they're like playing with rocks and sticks anyway, so I'm like, yeah, we could totally make a toy. And also I'm a crafter. I had been a DIY blogger. And so I have a craft room full of stuff. And we, on odd days, we'd go in and just pull out scraps and make stuff anyway. So making things was not an unusual idea. So it didn't feel like we were on an island. It was like, well, we have a house full of stuff. I think the other thing too was that I had just organized these cabinets and made them very beautiful with my $500 worth of containers. And I was super conscious of how many things I had in the walls of my house that I hadn't even been thinking about. We had lived in that house at that point for about 3 years, and 3.5 years maybe. And I had kitchen cabinets full of things. I had a pantry full of things. I had a home office full of stuff. My kids' closets were full of stuff. My own closet was full of stuff. I had a craft room full of stuff. We had a garage that we didn't park our car in, as many people can relate to. So I think I did a quick walkthrough and was like, what am I buying anyway? Like, what are the things that I'm continually adding to our lives on like a weekly basis, a Target run here or a quick online click of the mouse there? Like, what is this? Where is it all going? And why do I need it? And so I think it was different than if we really like had nothing or the bare minimum and was like, oh, we're not going to buy anymore, but we actually don't have any clothes to wear. Like we had plenty, as I assume most people I don't know, most people probably do, right? Like have enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just about deciding that what you have is enough rather than deciding that it isn't.
Mm. Yeah. The whole time you're like talking, I'm thinking of the show that you mentioned earlier where they're just organizing all the stuff and how I thought I was going to love that show and it only gave me anxiety. Like, why are you holding on to it? Why do you need to organize it and just shuffle it around? It's like when you consolidate debts and it's like you think you're doing something, but you still have the same amount of debt. You haven't done anything to it except put it in one payment, which for some people makes sense, but like, no, it just that show gave me so much anxiety.
It's
So
really different to like make things pretty for a while, because right, like once you start
yeah,
using things, then they probably aren't pretty anymore. It's kind of like the beginning of a dinner buffet at like an all-you-can-eat restaurant. Like it looks really good until one person passes through that line.
Yes.
And
Oh.
after that, it's over, right? But the difference between that and actually digging in and deciding what your values are, what matters most to you, how you want to spend your time, money, and energy, and then aligning the choices that you make with those things. And for us, it started with a pause with this. We believe that we have enough. We're going to just make that decision straight off. And it was an experiment. I never went into it thinking like, for sure, no matter what, we're not going to buy anything. I said, we're going to try this. We're going to try to not acquire any new things for the year and see what happens. And maybe we'll go 6 months and realize that it doesn't work, that we do absolutely need more clothes or whatever, but we're going to try and see. And I was overwhelmed by how simple it became. Once I got through the initial discomfort of walking into a store and then walking out with just grocery, like just like food, and like, go buy groceries at Target, you always come home with a couple things from the dollar spot and like that cute mug that was on the end cap and, just coming home with just like milk and eggs and grapes. I was like, this feels a little weird that I didn't even browse to see what else I might want. And then it pretty soon became my norm. And it was so much easier than I expected that it would be